All right, ladies and gentlemen. Today we got Paul the Punisher Passmore in the house. How you doing today, brother?
I'm doing pretty good. I feel like I did about 1,000 push-ups and about 5,000 sit-ups, and then Mike Tyson punched me in my left shoulder with brass knuckles. I'm great though.
Yeah, yesterday was a big day for you. And before we get into that, Ike Ford's already in the house. What's up, man? Hey, you're pretty well known all around the world, but for the people who see this who don't know, give us a little bit of background on you and then what brought you into the sport of arm wrestling.
Okay. As far as some of my national championship twice, 242, and I've also won it twice at super heavyweight. Um, Had a good run. Arm wrestled a bunch of big names, beating them. Some of the top guys. Had a good bunch of matches with them, and kind of living the dream on the sport. I'm really enjoying it. What brought me into it is I've been athletic my whole life, and I've always enjoyed intense combat style, rough competition such as karate and boxing and football and wrestling in high school, and it kind of led to MMA in my 20s and early 30s, and I had a good run with it and enjoyed it, loved it, lived it, and kind of grew out of it. Life changed a lot in my early 30s, and children and family and better jobs and stuff like that. So I kind of graduated out of MMA and tried a few different things. I tried a little powerlifting for a while. I didn't really like it. Tried a little bit of competitive eating for a while. I kind of liked it. That was fun, but you definitely pay for it after those contests. You're pretty miserable. So I decided that wasn't for me. And what got me actually into arm wrestling was Robert Webb and Dave Randall and Tim McPherson. And
Mm.
hey, I lost you.
Yeah, we got you back. You good?
All right. Sorry about that.
All right.
Where I was at, my influence getting into the sport was, yeah, it cut out. Somebody called me, and it made it. I'm back on there now. So anyway, my influence on the sport was, they did an arm wrestling contest um, locally, and I'd never been beaten, in school and everything like that. And so I showed up to it, and I was actually training for a cage fight at the time, and I ended up winning that arm wrestling contest pretty convincingly, beat everybody there. It was kind of an amateurish contest, but they had tables and everything. And it was Robert Webb. He's kind of a legend in the sport. He had set it up and was just trying to generate some general interest in arm wrestling locally. And it brought a lot of us in and brought me in. And Tim McPherson is married to my cousin Karen. So he's family, and we always would arm wrestle at family get-togethers and stuff like that. And I always had his number, naturally at our family get-togethers. And I was the MMA fighter, but he was always a very good arm wrestler. It was always a good match, and nobody had ever beaten him other than me. And then so he showed up to that event also. He did well, and I beat everybody. And I thought I was hot shit. And so Robert Webb called. He said, I got somebody I can call up here that can beat you. And I was a younger man. I thought, that was impossible. But it turns out, Robert Webb's best friend is Dave Randall. And we're talking about 2005-06 version of Dave Randall, the actual reigning world champion, one of the most dominant arm wrestlers of all time, Dave Randall, in his prime. And so I said, well, bring him on up here. So, and he don't live very far. So Robert called him and I waited on him and he got out and came in there, and he was one of the biggest humans you've ever seen in his prime. That dude was a monster. And he absolutely kicked the shit out of me. He beat me extremely convincingly to the point to where I didn't want to arm wrestle anymore. I was considering maybe getting into the sport. He beat me. I had no idea of how good and who Dave Randall was, but I realized after that, I said, if some guy can just roll up and beat me that bad, then I don't have any business doing this. So Tim, on the other hand, stuck with it and became an amazing arm wrestler. He had an amazing run there for a few years and was killing everybody. And I continued to fight for about 5 more years. And then when I got out of it, he had been arm wrestling probably 7 or 8 years and was really killing it at the time. And he convinced me to get into arm wrestling, I was looking for something else to do. It was about the time Game of Arms came out, and I was watching a few of those episodes, and I said, that does look pretty cool. So I went to the Georgia Heat tournament down in Sparks in June of 2014 without going to any practices or anything, and just decided to try it. And I pulled amateur and I pulled pro. And it was also by happenstance, it was Jerome Loud's very first tournament. And we were in the same bracket, the same day of the same tournament, and neither one of us had done anything. We just both showed up to arm wrestle that day. And left-handed, I placed second amateur and he placed third. And right-handed, I placed third and he placed second. And they had a guy named Daryl Oliver he probably should have been pulling pro, but he was still pulling pro and amateur. And he beat us both for first amateur that day. And we also pulled pro, and they ran them at the same time. And I got, I never pulled a tournament amateur where I didn't also pull pro. And I got absolutely demolished by every pro I touched that day. But it's kind of funny. I ended up pulling pro the way they ran them consecutively. So my first tournament arm wrestling match ever, it just so happened, and nobody else knew this, and it's kind of an interesting story from yesterday. You remember Buddy? And I don't think Buddy even knows this, the big guy from South Georgia, he was wearing that tan shirt, and I don't know if you pulled him, but he was pretty stout.
Yeah, I pulled him left hand yesterday. He was stout.
So did you see my match with him left-handed?
I believe so.
In the tournament.
Yeah.
Okay. His when you grip up with him, it was extremely intimidating. It might be, other than Jeff Dave, the most intimidating hand I've ever gripped. He felt like steel in his pretty big, rough hand. Anyway, he was my first match ever in a tournament back in 2014 at that tournament. Now, he probably doesn't even remember that because I was just some kid off the street, and he was already pulling pro. Anyway, he waxed me. It was my very first match ever. And I remember thinking after that match ended, I said, I'm going to beat him one day, And so I never got another chance to pull him until yesterday. So when he walked up to the table, I was like, today's the day. He had no idea that match actually had a lot of meaning to me. And so we slipped, and I got him in the straps, and I smacked him pretty good. But yeah, it felt pretty good to get the guy that won an arm wrestling tournament back. Yeah. So that happened yesterday. He couldn't be a better guy. It's just one of those little tick marks you have in your head that nobody else knows about, certain little things that happen in your career.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I had a good day yesterday. I had an absolute war with Carl. That was, and I knew it would be. And like, me and Carl are actually dear friends, and we try to avoid each other and stay out of each other's way. And, he's on he's been pulling a good bit longer than me. And Carl was also a person that I had to set my sights on when I was coming up. He used to just smack me when I was going pro and trying to pull pro. And for a while there, I was like, I don't know if I'll ever be able to beat him. He up with him. It was as fast as it could go to the pin pad. And can you still see me?
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, I studied Carl really hard for a long time and learned and watched his wins, watched his losses, and kept training and getting better. And I think the first time I ever beat him was in the Whirly Classic. I got him, and then he got me back a few months later in another tournament. We went back and forth for a while, and I ended up beating him for a national championship, left-handed, in 2019. And that was a good fight. And, I just studied his press and how to counter it and how he transitions and stuff in his top roll and how to counter it. He has some real specific ways of doing things, and he's an absolute truck. The man is an absolute horse. It feels like when you're trying to stop his press, it's like you're trying to stop a dump truck from hitting you or something. It's pretty incredible the amount of force he can apply. And even if you know how to stop his press, technically you got to be extremely strong to do it. The man's just a bull. We both weighed in at 285 yesterday.
Wow.
Both pretty well in our prime, ready to go, ready for each other, have a lot of experience against each other. And being really good friends made it different though, because we were trying to avoid each other, but we kind of cleared out everybody else left-handed, that was in contention or interested in being a PAF title belt holder. And that was it. It finally came down, and kind of like the Highlander movie, there can only be one. So we had to face each other at the end and being good buddies for a belt. And it kind of had to be a different mentality. Most of the time I kind of have this pit bull, reminiscent of my cage fighting days mentality going into that, kill or be killed. And with him, it was just more of a calm, clear-headed, just technical, got to do what I got to do approach. There wasn't a whole lot of aggressive emotion involved in it, but it was more of a planned, just apply my skills and technique chess match type of fight we had yesterday. And Carl had improved. He had some new things for me that I wasn't expecting, and I think what won it for me was probably the fact that the break on my right arm made me develop considerably more pronation in both arms. I've been training my right to top roll, and always train both arms the same. So my pronation has gotten pretty sick. So I was unable to hook him. It was the first time I've never been able to force him into a hook, and I would have been in deep trouble if I hadn't developed a high level of pronation. I actually beat his hand, and was able to pull him over and then work and adjust some angles and trap him outside of his shoulder and bleed him, and then apply more pressure and then bleed him and apply more pressure until finally. And he still got me with that press. He snuck one in there really good. The thing that scared me the most about Carl was normally when he's going to do a press, you see it coming. He sets up different. He gets ready for a press. It's coming. And when he does a top roll, he sets up different, and it's coming. If Carl ever figured out, and he actually somewhat, you could tell he's working on it, to where he could set up and you couldn't tell which one's coming, or be able to transition from one to the other really fast and seamlessly during a match, which he kind of is doing now. He could probably be damn near unbeatable if he could, set up, say, for the press and fake you into a top roll, or vice versa, set up for the top roll and be able to dive into that press really hard and bait you, because it's a completely different defense for both. And if you set up hard for one and he gets you with the other one, you're in trouble. And he kind of did that round 3 with me. He baited me into thinking it was fixing to be a top roll, and he transitioned into a nasty press, and I was deep in it before I could do anything. And in the past, I've been able to pull through his press, and he's gotten so much stronger. I could no longer pull through that. Once he's in it, you're pretty well dead in water.
Yeah. Mondo says, "What's up, brother? How are you feeling today? My arms feel like trash." Yeah, I think most of us are sore. How are you feeling, Paul?
I mean, it's brutal. It really is. I didn't realize I shouldn't have competed in the tournament left. I regret it. I didn't realize how bad I felt. And really until this morning, I woke up, I said, I can't believe I'm this sore. But I've had an injured shoulder all year. I heard it in Texas back in, I think, February or March when I pulled Lindley Keating. And it's been, and I injured it, after pulling, being stupid. And I just was after pulling everybody and playing around too much with people I shouldn't be playing around with. And I didn't realize I hurt it at the time, but later that night I realized I had done something pretty bad to my shoulder. And 2 weeks later, and I try not to advertise the fact that I'm hurt. I didn't want people to try to know that there was something to attack. So I went to Georgia Arm Fights, hurt pretty bad. 2 weeks later, took a ton of Advil, did the Georgia Arm Fights, and was doing well. And then I grabbed Jerome, and I got in a bad position with him. And in order for me to beat Jerome, I have to use a lot of shoulder, and my shoulder was hurt really bad. But everybody else thought I was pulling. I could use back and side pressure and beat him. With Jerome, you kind of have to dive into him like Pablo did in Cup to stop the top roll and try and kind of force him into somewhat of a hook match like Pablo did. And, like I said, I've pulled Jerome more than anybody over the years. We started about the same time. We've been pretty big rivals. He's a good friend of mine too, but we've just run into each other a lot. Single-handedly, he's probably beaten me more than anybody else in my career, and I've probably beaten him more than anybody else has beaten him in his career. We just met up so many times. It's kind of who has the better day. But he got on me that day. I thought I could beat him without my shoulder, and it didn't work out well. And I got in a bad position and still tried to fight it. And I'm stubborn sometimes. I just hate losing. But he popped my shoulder again during that match so bad that it injured it. It was done. And I had a match 2 weeks later with Brandon Elsesser that I had to back out of left-handed. And my left's my moneymaker. My right's it's a good arm. It's coming back. It's doing really well. I've been doing some good things with it and beating some good people with it. But my left's the one that it's the super match arm. My right is still a good tournament arm right now. But I agreed to pull Brandon and right-handed just so I wouldn't have to back out of the match altogether. But I knew I was going from a major, favorite to a major underdog by switching arms. And I got in there and mixed it up with him and Mike. I made it interesting, but, I ended up losing to both of them right-handed. Decided I'd take the rest of the year off up until, yesterday and just try to heal my shoulder. And, I've been having some elbow problems with my right and just get healthy and train up for Carl. And I knew it was going to be the type of match that it was. So I just trained really hard and got healthy and did what I had to do yesterday. Now I'm planning on dropping out of supers and cutting to 242 and attacking that class.
Yeah. I was going to ask you about the rankings, if they mattered to you a whole lot, or is it just the more so just the people you pull that matters to you?
Both. Rankings matter and the people that pull. Ranking are a very imperfect system. I've got a lot of gripes about it, but also would not want the job of doing it, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
so I try not to gripe too much, but Chance is doing an okay job with it. Me and him have gotten into several debates. I think right now I'm number 7 or 8 in North America left-handed, and Corey West is one ahead of me. And
yeah,
I think I'm
in the hook rankings. Left-handed, you're at number 8, and I believe it's the 2 that I know right above you is Corey and then Sean Latimer.
Mm. So here's how Sean got ranked above me. I think I'm like I'm 6-1 against him left, but he did beat me last. So,
Yeah.
got me. He deserves it. Now, I don't really have a gripe about that. Man got me last, even though I got the winning record left pretty handedly. Now, right-handed is a lot more even. I think he actually has a winning record against me right-handed, but left, I got a pretty lopsided winning record. But I still don't have a gripe because he did beat me the last time I pulled left, so it's legit. Corey's never beaten me left. I think I'm 2-0 against him left. And so I really don't see – I mean, Corey's a bad dude, and I just don't see – Chance took me completely off the rankings altogether without me even losing or being inactive. Even though I broke my arm, I was not inactive a year, and that's part of the rules. You got to be inactive a year, but he took me off because of the injury. And even though there's people he's left on there that hadn't even pulled without breaking their arm in that length of time, he would leave them on there. But I think, Chance may have a little personal issues with me, over some stuff, but that might be a little biased. But anyway, he put Corey above me, and I said, justify putting Corey above me. Justify. I've beaten the man twice in a tournament left. He's never beaten me. How are you ranking him above me? He's a bad dude, but what has he done to be above me? He hasn't. I've beaten him. Anyway, well, and all this is null now. It was I had a dog in the fight, but like I said, I'm going to 242, so it really doesn't matter anymore. Michael Todd was interested in the match when we left-handed his Arkansas tournament 2 weeks from now, but I didn't think it was very wise to try to pull Carl Stanley and then 2 weeks later pull Michael Todd. And especially I've been nursing an injury all year. That's too much, too quick. Last time I tried all these matches 2 weeks in a row, I got hurt. So, Michael and Carl would be just the two to hurt you if you want to pull them too close together. And I'm banged up bad from Carl, and I wouldn't want to go limping into Michael. And anyway, I want to go to 242 mostly just for health reasons. I don't feel as healthy. I'm big and lean at 285, but I just don't sleep well. I'm in my own way a lot. My cardio isn't good, but my blood pressure is a little higher than I would like it. I'm overall healthy, but I'm in my 40s. I need to start taking a little better care of myself, and just overall, I got kids and everything, and I feel better and have more energy to play with them when I'm a little bit lighter. And back when I used to fight, my best fighting, healthy, moving weight was about between 240 and 245. So that's where I'm going to try to get back down to and stay there and then attack that class. I feel like I kind of cleared that class out pretty well back in 2018 when I was still pulling in it. I ran out of really good competition. I won the national championship and that kind of stuff. But since I vacated that class and went to supers, which is extremely competitive, that class has gotten extremely competitive with a lot of really big names. And I'm very excited about getting back down there and, at their weight and then banging with them. I pulled around a little Rush Schrader yesterday. He's tough. That's a match I would be excited about at 242. Pulling with Pavlo yesterday. He got me yesterday. No excuses. He's a bad dude. But I feel like what I think happened there, I think Pavlo may have my number right now, but I also definitely feel that the match with Carl took a ton out of me. I mean, it really did. It was a grinder. And Pavlo pulled a lot. I think the advantage he had yesterday more than anything is he's got superhuman endurance. I think his matches just took less out of him. He even had a grinder with Jerome, but I just think he wasn't, it might have knocked a little off what he can do in my match with Carl, knocked a lot off of what I can do, unfortunately. But I would absolutely love to meet him fresh on fresh. I think it'd be very interesting. I had an experience one time where I had a super match with Mark Wilson before Alabama State, I think 2 years ago. I think you were there. Mm-hmm. And a 3 out of 5, and I just absolutely abused him 3-0. Ripped his arm off fresh at the beginning of the tournament. And me and him met first match in overalls. and he ripped my arm off because, you know, it's just that was that tiresome and brutal of a tournament. I think, you know, endurance doesn't go well for me. I think I'm a good super match puller, but after a super match, I probably just don't need to pull these tournaments, you know? So I kind of feel like there may be a little bit of that also to do with my loss to Pablo yesterday too. I think, you know, he's one of those guys that can pull a lot, and I'm one of those guys that can do a super match, and that's it for the day, you know. And anyhow, second place in that bracket wasn't too bad anyway.
Ike Ford wants to know about your final match between you and Carl.
Okay. So when he caught me in that press, I got a little worried. You know, because I was 2 up on him. I was fixing to finish him off 3-0, and boom, he got me in the press. And I fought that press, and I felt things making noises and shifting around in my elbow when I was fighting it, and it started hurting, so I let it go. And I wasn't sure if that had taken, if I fought it too hard and if it took too much out of me. And I rested in between rounds, and the adjustment I made he made a good adjustment on kind of transitioning into his press, and I knew it was going to come again because he hit me with it and it worked. And he had actually tried for something like that in round 2 also, but I blocked it. So I lined up a little bit different, and with a presser, you got to pull them away from themselves and crowd them. So I kind of got where I was in his way. We both got really tight shoulder to shoulder, and I knew he was coming at me. And so my first move was, you know, kind of to block him and hit sideways and pull straight back. And when he did, it pulled him outside of his shoulder, and I just surged with everything I had into his hand. And was able to end that match pretty quickly. So that went well.
Yeah, it was a grinder. I was very happy to be able to see a match like that. I was rooting for you. I couldn't really pick a winner because I knew it was going to be tough, but you pulled it off, and that was a great win. I wanted to ask you about your cut to 242. Once you get there, I know you said that you'd love to pull Russ fresh for fresh, but is there anybody in mind that you would like to pull?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I got a list. But basically, if you look at the top 20 and on, you know, the 242 rankings, I want a piece of everybody. You know, there's a lot of interesting matches to me. You know, Rance at 242 would be fun. Craig at 242 would be fun. Russ. Then you got Wilton Brock. You also got Jerome Loud. You know, I've already beaten Matt Mask left-handed too, and he's a 242 number 2. Then number 1's Marcio. So really, I have a feeling, and here's what I don't want to do is, you know, I'm planning on being 242 at Alabama State, but I kind of want to test the water. I want to get to 242 and pull a tournament to see how I feel. I don't want to get to 242 and start with a super match before I really know where I'm at. I don't want to call it out. I just want to get there and be that weight a while and pull and just kind of get used to being that weight before I go after some of the top dogs. But if I happen to meet one in a tournament, you know, it'll be interesting to see how I do right off the bat because, you know, 40 pounds is a lot of weight. And like I said, I'm pretty solid right now. So it's going to be a lot of muscle weight to kind of cut to get there. And my plan is to maintain my arm wrestling training really hard, but lay off a lot of the standard bodybuilding style training for mass that I'm doing, and just try to maintain as much functional table strength as possible and do a lot of cardio and healthy eating to get to, you know, periodic fasting and, you know, good food choices during my time allotted to eat to get to that weight. So, you know, it could affect my strength. Usually right after you lose a lot of weight, you're a little weaker, but once you kind of maintain that weight for a little while, you get a lot stronger. You know, you gotta be at a caloric deficit to lose the weight, but you only have to be at an equal amount of calories to maintain it. So you can usually get to the weight and eat a little bit more once you're there. And lift a little bit heavier and stuff like that and maintain a solid weight.
So speaking of Wilton, a couple of us down here have actually thought about if you would pull him left-handed. That's his better arm, to my knowledge. He recently, I don't know if you've seen it, he recently came back to a first tournament at the IFA qualifier in Cottonwood, Alabama. And he in the tournament, he beat Jerome twice left-handed. And
Yep, and I'm very interested in Wilton. That was a match I went after really hard a couple of years ago. I couldn't get him to come out of retirement, but he's back. Here he's the nicest guy in the world. I've never gotten to meet him. I'd like to meet him. Seemed to be a pretty cool guy just to meet and hang out with first, and then number two, be a fierce competitor. I know Carl beat him recently at Worlds. I think that was Wilton's last match. So I think they were pulling for second place at Worlds left. Wilton placed third right under Carl. So, I think it'd be a great match. It'd be very competitive. And I would be all about it. And I kind of hope I meet him in the tournament because I think I would like to meet him maybe fresh on fresh in the tournament. But like I said, right after a 40-pound weight cut, I don't want to call him out for a super match immediately. Right. I think we would owe it to everybody to let me get to 242 and get where I need to be before I try to pull somebody of that caliber. But I wouldn't mind meeting him in a tournament just to kind of get a feel for him. That was one reason I decided to pull the tournament yesterday. I knew Pavlo was going to be a big rival at 242. And even though I felt, banged up and tired and all that, I kind of wanted to get a feel for him just to kind of know what I was up against when I got to 242. Because I'd done the super match, it wasn't going to count against me either way. So I got a feel for him, and I think it'll end up helping me when I'm at 242. And I know we got to lock horns for sure where it does count.
So is Alabama State your next tournament that you're training for? Or is there anything before that?
My goal is to be 242 by Alabama State. I don't want to kill and emaciate myself to get there. I want it to be a healthy weight cut with a good, where it comes off like it's supposed to with proper nutrition and I'm not starving myself and that kind of stuff. And I feel like that's a possibility. And like I said, my goal is to show up at Alabama State at 242. But if I'm having a really rough time, I'm not going to go to any extreme measure to get there. If I have to still pull up, heavy, then I will. But yeah, the next event I'm planning on attending would be Alabama State. And, my goal is to compete in the 242-pound class. And that's kind of my just test the water. I want to, dip my toes in the pool and kind of see how I feel at 242 with that one.
So I want to touch on a couple of upcoming matches. The first one, Wayne Withers and Marcio. If I'm correct, didn't you have a match with Marcio maybe?
Yeah, I did. COVID got it canceled. And like I said, Marcio would be probably left-handed in my dream match. If I could pick one person to get a match with left-handed, it'd either be Marcio or maybe Toddzilla. He's won a couple world titles left-handed, and when he trains, he's there, he's ready. He hasn't been training left, but I see him recently have done some left matches and left training. I'd like to get a hold of a trained Todd Hutchings, possibly left, but Marcio being number one, obviously, would be the guy I'd be after. And Ron is also in the 242, and I would never. I stay out of Ron's way, and we're teammates. I wouldn't want a super match with him just because he's one of my best friends. A and B, I think we could easily stay out of each other's way, even in the same weight class, unless we just happen to be in the same bracket of a tournament. But I want to see Ron beat everybody and succeed, and I don't want to ever be in his way, and vice versa. We try to help each other out. So he's on up there. He's like number 3, I think, and Wilton's right behind him. So it would be cool. I'd like to maybe get a win on Wilton, maybe at Alabama State if it happens early in the bracket. I can get that rank. If we happen to meet fresh on fresh or the first in the tournament. Um, and being number 4, I could probably make a good run at Marcio and try to get a match with him for number 1. I feel like number 1 left-handed at 242 is actually attainable. Number 1 left-handed at Supers with Cody Merritt at the driver's seat there. I don't think that's attainable. I had a super match with him at my very best too. I mean, I was killing it, and he absolutely destroyed me. I've never felt so overwhelmed. He's probably the only person that's ever just completely overwhelmed me. I never felt like I even slowed him down. I didn't have crap for that guy left-handed. He's just a different animal, and I'm not even sure it was all strength either. I just never felt like I could engage. I felt like I was playing tug of war with somebody wearing cleats and I was wearing ice skates. I just never got a grip on anything. The dude just absolutely snatched my arm, slap off, and but it didn't feel like a brutal overpowering. The dude just had his angles down, speed, everything. He's an extremely intelligent individual. And he, obviously strong, but and I'm definitely not talking about his power by anything, but he just got the game down so well. It was fun. It was learning experience, very humbling one, but you kind of know where you're at sometimes when you run to the right one. They kind of show you your level. I'm up there, but I'm not sure that I could, like I said, I could ever shoot for number 1 left at Supers, but I think 242 is a lot more attainable. Marcio is a lot more beatable, a lot more human than I believe, Cody Merritt is.
Ike Ford says if you need any weight loss tips to hit him up.
All right. I'm calling you as soon as this is over.
So back to the Marcio and Wayne Withers, you've had experience pulling Wayne, I believe, right-handed. How do you feel that will go?
That one's interesting. Wayne does really good against people with a shorter arm. Wayne's a beast. Marcio, obviously, is one of the best to ever do it. It's very interesting. It's hard to call. You kind of want to say your money's on Marcio just because of the name and all that, but and it would be hard for me if somebody gave me $100 and said who to bet on. It would be hard because I know what Wayne's capable of. If the right Wayne shows up, he could possibly beat about anybody. But when Corey West beat Wayne, it actually shocked me because I beat Corey West and Wayne beat me. And I feel like if I had never broken my arm, I had Corey's number. We could go at it any time, and I would beat him. And a lot of people didn't agree with me when I pulled him last time at Wall. They're like, Corey's gotten so much better. You're not going to touch him this time. And I did beat him. And then I broke my arm, so it'll probably never be the same again. But I felt like I had his number, and he would have never been able to beat me. But Wayne beat me during that same time period. I guess it's just styles make matches because Corey handled Wayne pretty good, and I think I could have still beat Corey. Broke my arm, so but Corey did kind of show a weakness in Wayne's game. He kind of dove in and cupped him. Kind of blocked him here and caught him and pulled him back, and that might be a good angle for him. I was very interested in seeing Robbie Burnett pull Corey, because that was actually the match that was signed up for before, Wayne and Robbie backed out of the match against Corey and Wayne stepped in, and so you didn't get to see it happen, but that would have been an interesting one to see too.
Yeah, I believe, like you were talking about right before your arm break, you were right there. Like you were at that level, and I couldn't imagine, where you would have been at now. But yeah, I don't know. I don't really know who to go with on referring to Wayne and Marcio. Just from the short time I've been in the sport, I would go with Marcio, just experience and he, like you said, he's one of the best to do it. So it'd be really tough for me. But
yeah, I say 60-40 Marcio, but I wouldn't be one bit surprised if Wayne pulled it off at all.
yeah, Wayne's. I think when you beat Matt Mask left-handed, I think didn't Wayne beat him right-handed?
Yes, he sure did.
That was pretty impressive too.
Yeah. It was supposed to be me pulling Matt right-handed. And I honestly think I would have beat Matt that day. I think I'm a bad style matchup for him. So I had to go get my phone charger. For some reason, my phone's battery just doesn't hold. So it was about to die. But anyway, let's see, how did it go? So it was me and Matt were going to pull right-handed. And I was excited about that. And I feel like that day it would have been the same way. I would have beat him right. So Herman Stevens, I've been wanting to match with him. He reached out and wanted to pull right, but he didn't want to pull left. So I said, well, I still want to pull Matt. Matt was looking for somebody to pull left. So I said, well, how about this? Let me pull Matt left and Herman right. Those were two matches I wanted really bad. And Sean thought that was a good idea. And he said, well, who do you think would be a good match for Matt right-handed? I said, I feel like Wayne would smash Matt. I feel like Matt has a hard time with people his height or taller. And shoot, let him go. And he's like, you think so? I was like, yeah. And so he made that happen. And Wayne proved my hypothesis right on that one. He smacked him pretty good. And so me and Wayne both kind of shot the world that day. It was a bad day for Matt.
Yeah, I believe both of y'all did clean sweeps on him, right?
3-0. Yep.
Yeah. I remember watching that.
A lot of people made a lot of excuses for Matt, and I love Matt, and he's a great guy. But I think a good version of Matt showed up. I just think me and Wayne were ready for him. I don't think me and Wayne got the credit we deserve for that.
Well, a lot of times I've noticed in the sport when people's opinions go wrong or get proved wrong, they start to throw out excuses and everything to try to justify them being wrong, and it makes them, I'm not going to say it makes them look like idiots, but it just, you get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But
and also we were pretty good friends. We try to stay out of each other's way. I've beaten him a time or two. We haven't pulled a lot. He's beaten me a time or two, but he had the most recent win on me right-handed. I think on a good day. And I guess right-handed, I think maybe in another year or two, I'll be back where I was. But as it stands, right-handed is kind of past tense, but on a good day before I broke my hand on my arm, I feel like, I could have beaten Wayne on any given day and he could have beaten me on any given day. Just kind of who gets what they want, who's a little bit clear-headed and whose game plans and intact better on that particular day. Wayne's a hard guy for me to beat. He's like the guy that's tailor-made and designed to be someone like me. The height advantage and arm length and his style is really hard for somebody that's shorter that likes to hook with a lot of side pressure. So beating Wayne is always going to be a tall order, for giving up. And that's another reason, it'll be cool to go to 242 if I'm not going to be giving up so much of a size difference. I'm 6 foot, 280 pounds, which is a fairly good size fellow. But, you look at me beside BJ or Wayne or, Corey West. Corey West is as big as a refrigerator and way taller. He's, if you see that man in real life, I mean, he is a monster. He's one of the more, have you ever met him in real life?
No, but I've heard that like watching him on TV or nothing doesn't do justice for how big the guy is.
He is an absolute beast. Yeah. I mean, he's a very intimidating guy to stand across the table from. You don't see nothing but human when you're looking across the table. He just is a mountain. So, I'm giving up. These guys are all a head taller than me and over 100 pounds heavier and that kind of stuff. I think Corey outweighed me 150 pounds or so when we pulled. So giving up that type of the size advantage is huge, and it's rough on your body. I believe that may have pulling against people with bigger bones and bigger frames and a lot of height and leverage. And that intense of a match for that long, that may have had a little bit to do with my arm break too. Just the abuse I was putting on myself with a structural disadvantage I had, on most of my opponents. So he going to 242, I'm not going to be giving up. I'm actually a big 242 for that weight, so it should be pretty cool to pull people my size or smaller for once, And as I cut that weight, I may lose a little strength, but I gain a tremendous amount of speed too, and I'm able to move a little better, get a little tighter, stuff like that. So overall, I think I'm a lot more dangerous at the 242 class. I feel like I'm relatively as strong as I am now, not quite, but a lot more technical and considerably faster. So I just feel like that's my class. I cleaned it out a few years ago, so I'm going to go back to it and see if I can clean it out again. And I pulled around with a few people right-handed yesterday, and anybody that's pulled me right here recently will tell you it's definitely not a joke. I beat some pretty good guys on the side table. I had no idea, and I said, "Don't play with me right. It's a good arm. It's different than it used to be, but I've been beating some top-level guys and." Getting 2 tournament wins on Glenn Brooks right-handed, and I had some good after pulls with Casey Coley yesterday, and some real good after pulls with Russ Schrader yesterday too, right-handed. And they were both pretty impressed with what I've been able to rebuild since the break. So I might surprise some people right-handed too. I'm looking forward to doing that. At 242, give myself a little bit of time to heal up and relax. My son's wrestling season is here. I like to spend a lot of time coaching and helping him and going to all his wrestling meets during the winter. And it works out about perfect. It's all about over during February when Alabama happens. And so I can be just working on my weight and everything in between now and then, and show up and see what happens, in a new world, and try to get ranked and get on paper as quick as I can and work from there.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of talk about your right arm starting to come back, and that's a scary thing.
Yeah, so the surgery damaged my elbow some, and I don't feel as good with my side pressure as I used to in my hook. It's a new arm. I had to relearn my arm, and I found the way they put my arm back together. It's this real good structural top rolling arm now. So I've become more. I can still hook with it, but I've become more of a top roller right-handed. It feels a lot more comfortable. I feel a lot of pain in my arm when I try to hook and apply side pressure, and that might be because when I broke it, that's kind of what I was doing. And that pushes on where it broke at, maybe. I don't know. But top rolling doesn't hurt or cause any pain, so I kind of gravitate towards that now. And I started really training my top roll hard at the beginning of this year, and I've about quadrupled the weight that I was able to easily move with all my pronation exercises. I've worked at it really hard and been diligent, and dedicated to getting developing a lot of power with my pronation, and I've worked on my technique, and I've developed a pretty good strength doing it. And I kind of broke that out for the first time when because I lost to Glenn Brooks in Tennessee. And then it was a good match, but I was trying to hook him, and I just didn't have what I needed in my arm anymore to hook Glenn. Before the break, I was able to pretty easily beat him right-handed. Afterwards, I could put up a good fight, but he always got me, and he beat me for first in Tennessee. And then I decided to pull him and compete against him in Dahlonega Gold Rush about a month ago, and it was still a fight, but it went my way, and I came at him completely different with my new top roll, and I'm only going to get better at it, and I was able to win. So that was a huge confidence builder and stepping stone in my journey back right-handed. Because anybody that knows Glenn knows he's one of the baddest dudes out there. He really is, and he always will be. You know, if you beat Glenn Brooks, you can consider yourself a tough bastard because, you know, Glenn's one of the best ever. And he's one of my best friends too. And I've always admired Glenn and looked up to him. And, you know, he's another one of those guys. The first time I pulled him, I was like, how could anybody possibly ever beat this guy? You know, just the amount of power you felt out there, you know. Yeah, I guess, you know, as an amateur, I think I came up faster than a lot of people. So I still had a lot of fresh amateur memories as a fairly high level pro. You know, it's kind of weird still remembering these guys as an immovable object, and then you're beating them, you know, being able to progress that fast. You know, knows you came a little, it's a good feeling to know you came that far.
Yeah, I remember when I first got introduced into arm wrestling, Glenn is actually the guy who started talking to me, and he's the one who referred me to my first tournament in Porterdale, Georgia. It was a PAF where you pulled Stump Burton.
Yes.
And that was the first time I had met you, and I was like, I couldn't believe how solid and big of a man you were. Like you just looked like a big gorilla.
Well, thank you. I
And
worked real hard at
that you put on the show there too. And I believe, was that for a belt? Did you win a belt there?
That was my first title defense. So Craig Soublier had that belt. He vacated the title, and it turned it into a big round robin, because whenever a title belt's vacated, Anthony usually gets all the top competitors. You know, anybody that wants a shot and puts in a round robin. And it was pretty brutal. There's a bunch of really tough guys in it, but it came down to between me and Jesse Barnett. Do you know who Jesse Barnett is?
Mm-hmm.
He's a bad dude. And he actually beat me. It was a double elimination. He beat me in the round robin, and I battled my way back through everybody. Everybody else got eliminated, and I had to pull him for first. I had to beat him twice. He had to beat me once, and I figured him out. It was a war, the first match, but I figured out what I needed to do and came back from a losing position and pinned him. And then the second round, I knew right what to do. And it was a lesson I learned about hitting, and it all clicked in my head. Josh Bishop, you know, he's one of my mentors, and he was known as the hit man. He had one of the nastiest hits out there, but he said, Paul, you don't always hit to win. Sometimes you hit for position. And I said, well, what do you mean? He goes, you know, sometimes you can't. There's some people that if you hit them hard enough, you're going to bust your own hand back, when they wouldn't have done it. But if you sell out hard enough, and you'll know when you do it, it was kind of your fault. You bust your own hand back and you put yourself in a compromising position from the hit. You know, sometimes you want to dive into them and cup. You hit for that really fast to get there and then work from there. And I listened to him, and it made sense, but I was still too young for it to really apply until that match. It came back to me because when I pulled Jesse, I'd been hitting everybody and busting them over pretty well. Well, Jesse timed my hit and kind of turned his hand, and I busted my own wrist back, and he took me over. And then that's when it finally clicked. You know, when I was walking up to the table for the final match, I was like, I'm going to dive into him and cup instead of try to hit him for a win. I dove into him and cup, and it was still hard, but I got what I wanted and pulled him back and pinned him. And then I did it again, and then I won my first belt, and I just went crazy. You know, that belt meant the world to me. It was a huge stepping stone. I knew it was something I needed to accomplish to get where I wanted to get. You know, I needed a belt. I needed the notoriety, you know, the pictures Anthony would publish of all his champs holding the belt and stuff like that, and being one of them would get your name out there. And that's kind of where it all started. And it went real well. And Stump was one of the first people to challenge me for that belt. And so when you came there that day, that was my first title defense of that belt.
Mondo says, when do you want some of this heat? Just kidding.
I'll tell you when I don't, and that's today. I don't feel like I could beat my 5-year-old son Henry in arm wrestling right now. I feel like I said, I don't know if I said it when we were talking earlier or on this actual podcast, but I'm destroyed. I feel like I've done the most brutal chest. Again, I pull a lot, I guess, with my chest and shoulders and midsection because I feel it a lot in my core muscles and my chest and shoulders the next day. And I'm just destroyed. I'm so sore. My left shoulder, it's injured now. I'm gonna need some time just to rest. I can still use it. It's not past something that'll just heal, but it's hurt pretty bad. So yeah, not today. We'll have to take a rain check. Maybe meet me in Alabama.
Do you still use the Country Crush a lot? Any of those tools?
Every workout. And the Country Crush is kind of going out of business and that kind of stuff. They're selling off everything. They're doing a big sale to the end of the year, and that's going to be it for them. So if you want to get something, now's the time. But I think I sold a lot of handles and helped the company quite a bit. I ended up being the captain of Team Crush in it, which was a huge honor. And I'll always use their stuff and always support their logo because that made me who I am. As an amateur, I couldn't keep people from top rolling me. Anybody that wanted to, if you wanted to hook, now you had problems, even as an amateur. But as a pro, you got to be able to stop that. If you got a weakness, everybody just is going to attack you and beat you right where you're easiest at. You got to be well-rounded. And to develop the hand and wrist strength I needed, the Country Crush handle and the Raptor had everything to do with it. And that's the God's honest truth. Every workout, I use the Country Crush and Raptor religiously. I got a power pull table and a Raptor handle, and I do 90% of my arm wrestling workout with that. Just a 2-inch Raptor and a power pull table on a pulley, and just do all kind of arm wrestling angles and exercises and pulls and static holds with it and wrist work. And then I'll use, I do a lot of pull-ups and deadlifts with the actual Country Crush handle to put a bunch of weight, on my hands that'll really build that static strength and pull-ups and that kind of stuff for grip. But yeah, it made all the difference in the world for me.
Didn't you set a record with that deadlift at one time?
At the 242 class, I still hold the world record for the 242 class. I'm the only person at 242 that's broken the 400-pound barrier. Got 400 and a half pounds. So I barely broke it, but yeah.
That's tough. I've tried some stuff like that at Andy Bowen's house, and it wasn't near that. It wasn't but about half of that. Tell me a little bit about when you had John Brzezinski at your practice. How was it pulling with John? I mean, that had to have been just exciting in itself.
So yeah, it was a dream, really. I mean, I got a picture right there.
Nice.
How cool is that? You got Ron as your friend and coach. Well, he's as big of a legend as John is, and when you're around him all the time, you get used to him and you take for granted how amazing he is. But when me and him travel out of town somewhere and go somewhere else, you really realize how big of a rock star Ron is. He's got everybody lined up to get pictures with him and, get his autograph and pull with him and stuff like that. He's big time. And I just love Ron to death. He's like a true family member. Somewhat of a father figure, in a way. I look up to him and admire him tremendously. And anyway, he's good friends with John, so he called me up on a Friday. He's like, "What are you doing tomorrow?" I said, just housework, kind of hanging out. If Ron ever wants to practice, I'm always game if humanly possible. And he goes, "Well, would you possibly be able to set up a practice for tomorrow?" I said, "Yeah, if you want me to, whatever you want to do." And he said, "Well, the reason I asked with such short notice is John Brzezinski's coming in town, and he's wanting to practice tomorrow." I mean, you could probably hear my permagrin through the phone when he said that. I was like, "Are you shitting me? Holy shit, John Brzezinski's really coming?" He goes, "Yeah." I said, he really wants to practice. He's like, "Yeah." I said, "Absolutely. I will absolutely have a practice tomorrow at 2. I'll have it ready." So, so he goes, "Okay." I said, "So yeah, let him know. We're good. 2:00 tomorrow." And so I hung up and I was like, holy shit. I was, starstruck immediately. So I called up basically the whole team and said, "Hey, I know you're not planning on practicing tomorrow, but what I'm about to tell you, you're going to be there." And they're like, "What are you talking about, Paul?" I said, "John Brzezink's going to be in my house." They're like, "No, he's not." I'm like, "Yeah, he is for real." And I said, "He's friends with Ron. He's just going to happen to be in town." And then Ron just called me, and they're like, "Holy shit, I'm going to be there." So everybody came, and it ended up being a big practice with 1 day's notice. And then so I went and cleaned up my basement real good, got everything extra spiffy for him, and we got over downstairs, kind of warming up and getting ready, and then here come Ron and John walking down the stairs, and I was like, "Holy shit, John Brzezinski is in my basement," and so you could tell everybody was pretty starstruck, and the next day, everybody pretty much that was their profile picture was them with John Brzezinski, and he really took a liking to me. Which was just an honor. Ron had told him about me, and he was like, "Well, listen, heard you got a really good hook. Let's pull fresh on fresh first in the hook. I won't go outside of the hook. I want to see if you can beat me in a hook." And so my first experience with John was like a match in a hook where I wanted to go my strongest place before I ever broke my arm, and it was nasty and it was a grinder. And it was just a practice match. I'm definitely not saying anything disrespectful or not, because I'll tell you right now, John would kick my ass in a real match, and that's, and anybody that thinks they can beat him is pretty stupid. But anyway, in a hook, fresh on fresh, before I broke my arm, I legitimately beat him in that practice pool. But he did show me later that I could be cut in as deep as I wanted to be in a hook, and he could still come out of it and bust my hand back and pin me whenever he felt like it. So, he showed me he's the better arm wrestler, but just in my one place where I was my absolute best, I was able to beat him in that practice pool, which was still pretty freaking amazing. It was cool. And he took a liking to me, and he wanted to pull with me a lot. He kept getting me, "Let's get back on the table." And I was like, "Sure." So I pulled with him a ton that day. And he pulled me aside and showed me a lot of little things, just from his perspective. He is so smart. He's like the absolute perfect arm wrestler. He's got everything. He's the best at everything. He gave me a bunch of really cool pointers, made me a lot better just that day. Just kind of him seeing a few different things and this and that. I learned a considerable amount from him that day, and it was a great experience. He pulled around with everybody. Just everybody says he's the coolest, most laid back guy in the world, and that's true. He is. And to be as amazingly badass as he is, and still be just that cool and laid back, is pretty neat. Just one of the guys. I predict that he beats Devin. It's going to be a similar match just to what you saw when him and Devin met in Wall last, 2017, when they had their Wall match?
2015.
Okay. And why I say that, Devin's going to be big, Devin again, I believe, like he was when they pulled Michael, from what I hear. But did you see John during that interview with Michael Todd a couple of days ago? They even talked about a little bit about me, which was also pretty cool. It's John and Michael talking about me and Carl's match coming up.
Right.
But, they touched on that, but that was pretty neat. They touched on it. But anyway, John looked bigger than I've ever seen him. He looked like a monster. He looked 250-ish himself.
I think he's sandbagging.
That big of a John, and John's always been a giant killer, right? I mean, he's 200 pounds or a little bit over, beating Saplinkov. I just don't. I mean, Devin's as bad as they come. Devin's got my respect too. He's a killer, and if there's, they're two of the greatest ever. But we're still talking about John, and the version of John that I saw, he looks kind of like a pancake version too. My money's on John. I've never had the opportunity or pleasure or honor of pulling Devin. Him and Michael are two of the huge names in the sport, though. Just never got an opportunity. I guess Michael, I did have the opportunity to pull left and declined, but like I said, I'm looking to go to 242, and my goals changed. But yeah, I've never pulled Devin, but I pulled John, and I know what John's capable of, and I saw what John did to Devin last time, and I think it's going to be similar, but they're both just going to be bigger.
So, Benz, it's a shutout stake. When you say that you think John will win, you're thinking he's going to win the match, not just get the one pin. As far as stakings, you think he's going to win the match?
I think he wins the match. Yes. I think it's probably going to be a 3-2 deal, and it's going to be nasty, but I think John wins it. You know, you think about smart arm wrestlers, probably the first three names that come to mind as far as intelligence and knowledge of the sport and not just coaching, but able to apply it themselves would be John, Devin, and probably Herman, three smartest pullers in the sport. They just absolutely, have a super high understanding of what to do and how to apply it themselves. There's some people, that have that type of knowledge and can coach you, but they don't want to quite apply it to the level that that say Herman and Devin and John can do, though.
Two questions real quick. Mondo, earlier, I had skipped it. Earlier, he had said that after yesterday, he was thinking about dropping from 220 back to the 198 class. And he asked it, he didn't know if you really paid attention to him or not, but how did you see him in the 220 class? He said he got his butt handed to him. But what do you think about the 220 compared to him maybe going back down to the 198?
Okay, so what I said earlier about getting to a weight class and easing into it and taking a little bit of time and giving your body time to get used to being that weight and that size is important. When I'm not going to set any expectations for myself at Alabama State when I make 242. It's just going to be I want to get there and pull and go from there. I don't want to have high expectations or low. It's just going to be a test to kind of see how I feel. So if you're pulling a new weight class, whether you're going up or down, give yourself a few tournaments and like if you don't do well, especially that was a very, very high level tournament yesterday. There's a lot of really good pullers at every weight class from around the country. Pull a few tournaments at that weight and give your body time to get used to being there before you make any decisions. Whatever motivated you to get bigger and pull a heavier weight class, if that was your first tournament or even second and you're not getting the results you're after, give it a few more. Get used to being 220. Let your body really set in at that weight. And if you do a couple more and it's just not working out, then, maybe go back to where you were if you feel like you're enjoying a higher level of success at a lighter class. But generally speaking, 220 it may be the toughest class overall.
There's a lot of bad dudes in that weight.
Yeah, that's a nasty class. Just, from experience, I cut the 220 myself and I gave myself some time to get used to being there. And it didn't go great. It didn't go bad. I was like a top 3 guy, but I was usually placing second and third, and I gave myself enough time to get used to being there. And I wasn't as competitive at 220. Now I had to really emaciate myself to get there, and I'm kind of a strength style puller, and I feel like I lost a disproportionate amount of strength once I got to 220. And I wasn't able to enjoy the strength advantage that I have over most people. Even at supers, I might be smaller, but I'm still usually stronger than my opponent. And so I found myself that 220 was a very difficult class. So that might be the hardest class out there, pound for pound. If you look at the murderer's row of top 20 guys on both arms on that one, that's a high level, weight class all around. But my advice would be to stay there hit you, several months, a few tournaments before you make any final decisions. If you didn't get the results you're expecting yesterday, still give it a little bit more time. Keep training into that weight class and give your body a little more time to settle in and then make the decision. But the two takeaways there, that's a very difficult class, in itself. And then give yourself time, and see how you feel.
Yeah, Andy, I was going to get to it. He had asked about what type of deadlift, and he looked it up, the Country Crush deadlift. Yeah, I was going to tell you, Andy, that's something that I'd like to see you try. Being, you being just an overall strong guy and everything, try it out and kind of see how you can do on it. Do you have any of it on your YouTube?
I do. I got my actual. So one thing that I think really hurt the company, and me and Raymond talked about this recently. We had a really good underground sport going just in itself in Country Crush deadlift. We had people all over the world doing Country Crush deadlifts in their basement or in their local gym with a loading pin and submitting the video. And several of us on the team would, there's 3 or 4 of us that we do it, 3 out of 5 or 2 out of 3 and judge the lift if it passed or not, and to be submitted as a lift. And, it allows for a little bit of possible cheating, this and that kind of stuff. But for the most part, it was pretty honorable. And we were having a really good time with it. We were selling a lot of handles. There's a lot of success with it. And we decided to hand over the Country Crush deadlift, judging and all that to Armwrestling USA and try to get a little more official with it. Instead of kind of underground the way we were doing it. It was, it was kind of an underground way of doing things and judging it, but it was generating a lot of interest and people were really enjoying it. We were getting people from all over Europe and China and Russia and Australia and everywhere, all over the country and South America and everywhere submitting videos. And we were judging them, and we had our own rankings and all that kind of stuff and set of rules. But when we gave it to arm lifting, they kind of just let it die. We had some magic going for a minute there, and we should have never handed it over, in my opinion. I think that really hurt the company, slowed everything down. I think that's where the Country Crush momentum may have slowed. I would like to recreate that if possible, but it's kind of too late at this point. Me and Raymond talked about it. So anyway, it was fun, and you can still do it. You got the loading pin. You got to make sure it's a good controlled lift and that you don't drop it when you finish. You control it, lock it out for a second at the top. Make sure you can handle it, and then you sit it back down easy without dropping it and control it on the way back down. But yeah, you can find my actual submission video where I submitted my world record before Armlifting USA got a hold of it on YouTube. And say Paul Passmore world record Country Crush deadlift, and that's me where I weighed in at 242. You had to show your weight, weigh in, and then after the weigh in video, you did your submission video, and then it was judged and it passed. It was a pretty cool deal.
Yeah, guys, I'm gonna put Paul's YouTube channel in the description, so y'all make sure y'all go and subscribe to that, and y'all can check that out. And do you have any of the pulling with John on there?
Yes.
Yeah, so y'all,
it'll say Paul Passmore versus John Brzezinski practice pulling.
Yeah,
make sure respect of John. I made sure to put practice pull in there.
And one other match I wanted to ask just your opinion about, because I think you could have some insight on it maybe. Well, have you ever pulled Herman? Yeah, you did pull him right-handed. Yeah, okay. The Chance and F.A., I think that's how you say his name, F.A. Comic, the guy who beat Herman recently.
When is this match? When's it coming up? What's the date on it? Do you know?
It's I believe it's in February in Turkey. I believe it's in February. I'm not sure on what exact day.
I'll tell you this. I had Chance scheduled 2 weeks from when I broke my arm. Remember how many had the super match? I was going to pull Dickie Spear off left and Chance right. And I feel very confident that I would have demolished Chance. Had I not broke my arm, it would have been a very lopsided beatdown, and I was looking forward to doing that to him. Unfortunately, it's one of those things that never got to happen. I had a lot of really cool stuff set up before the break. Herman, he caught me at my very best. We had what might have been one of the best arm wrestling matches of all time. Really, it couldn't have been a nastier 6-round war. We ended up tying 3-3. And it wasn't. It really didn't. It was such a. The tie was in such a way. I won round 1 and 2, and he won round 3 and 4, and then I won round 5, and he won round 6. So I won a late round. He won a late round. It showed we had similar endurance, strength, technique. It was back and forth, just battle to the death. We both were absolutely exhausted. Herman is every bit as good as me. It was kind of I wanted to pull him because in my mind, he's, like I said, one of the top 3 most intelligent arm wrestlers out there. Like I said, he's up there with Devin and John. Then they're kind of those 3 in my mind are in a class of their own. In North America, anyway, is the smartest arm wrestlers. And I wanted to see how I would do. I'm a little bit more of a power, so it's kind of a little bit of power versus knowledge, type of match. And if I had a weakness, I knew he would find it. And if I had one, I wanted to know about it and work on correcting it. And he found a few holes in my game, and I was able to adjust and come back and battle over what he found. And so overall, Herman is one of the baddest dudes you could ever grab a hold of. In my absolute prime before the break, we tied. And he probably gave up 20 pounds or so on me. So it was a good fight. And I think Herman would absolutely demolish Chance if they pulled. It'd be ugly. I don't think Chance wins one, if they pulled. If Chance, got a hold of a serious Herman like I did in a vendetta where it was, he got a trained, motivated, 240-pound Herman like I did, I think it's a long day for Chance. And if this cat was able to beat Herman, and I think Chance is going to he's going to have an embarrassing situation coming up in Turkey. So that's my complete analysis on it. Not taking anything away from Chance. He's a bad dude. But unfortunately, he's not a left-handed guy, and my right's still a work in progress. So we're probably still a couple years out from our match, when I finally get my right back where it needs to be, where I'm ready to challenge somebody of that caliber. And plus, he's heavyweight now, and I'm going to 242. So if anybody wants a piece of me for at least the next year, they're going to have to come to 242.
Okay. And last thing I wanted to touch on with you, as far as the most talked about up and comers, Chance, Derek Smith, and Corey West. Out of those 3, who do you see as the better up and comer, or with the assumption of the best future upcoming?
Okay, I saw a video recently of Chance and Corey pulling. Did you see that one?
I did.
So Chance is immediately out of the conversation after I saw that. Corey pretty much put that to bed. Now I pulled Derek Smith in a practice. We had a super match set up. I pulled him in a practice in California. We originally were going to pull left. We switched to right. So when I went to his practice, he said, "I'll pull you left." And Derek is a dear friend of mine. Love the dude to death. Couldn't be a nicer guy, and he's an absolute giant, man. But I beat him pretty easily left. But that was a different version of Derek. The version of Derek that came out and pulled Tom Nelson here recently was a pretty scary looking cat, dude. He was way, way bigger and stronger looking by a whole different ballpark, Derek. I don't know that that I could beat, even at my best, could beat this version of Derek. That dude looks pretty scary. I definitely wouldn't hesitate to try, but he looked very interesting. I think this version of Derek may be something to really reckon with. The jury's still out. I think he's called out Tim Bresnan, and he's paid Tim $1,000 to take the match, and he's paying his travels. So Tim, if you can beat Tim, you're an amazingly super badass dude because Tim is a killer. So we'll be able to tell a lot more then. But he convincingly beat Tom Nelson, and Tom Nelson is one of the baddest dudes out there too, and he beat him convincingly. So Corey, I pulled him. Corey's a bull. Right now, by what they've done, Corey would be my favorite. Derek definitely number 2, but I wouldn't mind seeing them two have a clash, right-handed sometime soon, especially if Derek is able to beat Tim Bresnan. If he pulls that off, he becomes my favorite immediately. Because Tim's as bad as they get. He's one of those guys who's like Ron, age just or John Brzink, age just doesn't matter. You pull them right now, you're still getting a hold of a version of them that can beat anybody else. Really, they defied really. All 3 of those, they're pretty much immortal.
And lastly, is there anybody in the near future, within a year and a half, that can beat Levon? Can a 300-pound Devin?
If Devin beats John convincingly, I would be interested. I would think maybe he would stand a chance. Really though, no, I don't think so. But if he does beat John, maybe. That's a big test. If he beats this version of John, I wouldn't mind watching him go try. My money would still be on Levon, but I wouldn't completely rule Devin out, if he takes out John in a convincing manner. If he absolutely just, puts it on John, and this, heavy 250 looking pound John, even if, he's 280, 290 pounds, if he gets a little bit bigger after that and goes after Levon, maybe, maybe I would definitely pay to see it, Yeah. And I wouldn't be absolutely shocked if Devin did do it, but my money would definitely strongly be on Levon, based on what I saw him do to Shafee. Yeah.
All right, Paul. Well, I appreciate you taking time out of your day to join us, man. I hope I didn't keep you too long.
Oh, no, I enjoyed every second of it. And I want to wish everybody good, happy holidays and happy new year. And I'm looking forward to, I'm going to spend the entire, however it goes, I'm going to spend the entire year of 2022 at 242. If it goes well, I'll probably stay there. At the end of the year, I'm going to reevaluate and kind of see where I'm at. Going back super heavyweight would not be out of the question, but I'm going to make a hard, dedicated run at 242 and put everybody on the 242 list on notice that I'm coming. And I'm bringing hell with me.
I think we're all going to be excited to see it. And take care, buddy. We will see you at Alabama State.
Absolutely, brother. Looking forward to it. Take care.
All right, buddy.